Welcome to the Casual Author Podcast. I'm Dan, sci-fi and fantasy author. Like you, I've got a lot on my plate. What with many children, a full-time job, a homestead, and loads of other responsibilities. I'm here to bring you inspiration, positivity, and community around having a busy life and still wanting to chase that author dream, even if you have to take a casual approach. For more information about the podcast, me, or my books, head to thecasualauthor.com. Let's get started. Hey there, it's Dan Kenner with episode number 148 of the podcast. Today we're talking to H. Rune about finding freedom in independent publishing. We talk about how she started writing a story that's very close to her heart 25 years ago, and through various phases of querying and agenting and trying, the traditional route, just deciding, hey, I can find more freedom in this independent route. And we talk about her journey into the independent publishing, how she's able to take some more creative liberties with that, and how she has a really cool audience connecting perspective with her books. So we talk a little bit about kind of this strategy she's leveraging with her books. It's kind of cool. It's almost like a scavenger hunt type thing with her books. So definitely worth listening to that. I think you'll find some encouragement and maybe some more insight into whether you would want to delve into the traditional or the independent route for your publishing. So definitely stick around for that conversation. It's come to my attention that the subscription method for this podcast has been broken. I don't know for how long, pretty much possibly forever, who knows. I do recall testing it at the very beginning, but essentially when you go to thecasualauthor.com, you're supposed to be able to sign up for the email list. I just send out kind of some information about the podcast episodes every week. I think I'm going to be sending it every other week is the way I'm doing it. And no one's been able to subscribe. So I discovered that, and an author that so graciously shared with me via email, hey, tried to sign up for your podcast subscription and it wasn't letting me. So it should be fixed now. Today, it's not going to send you anything as a result of that. It's just the emails that you get. I will be setting up kind of a welcome email string with potentially a resource with that. I just need to get that all set up. But at least now you can subscribe at thecasualauthor.com. Apologize for the trouble there. It's one of those things where you test it and it seems to be working, and then who knows, at any step of the process broke and you just don't know. So if you notice anything like that again, please, anybody, let me know. Definitely want to get that fixed for you. So please let me know where you're listening. I love to see comments. Let me know what you think about the episodes, if there's any parts of it that resonates with you, or if you want to hear more of a specific subject or from a specific author, let me know. And I'll definitely try to get more of that if that is possible. But we can go ahead and dive into updates for this past week. So homestead/family updates. Mainly the weather's just taken a really turn for the worse. It's the coldest weeks are usually end of January, kind of beginning and middle of February, and that's what we're seeing. So I was crossing my fingers that it wouldn't be so bad this year. Because we're seeing some pretty warmer weather, which, depending on who you talk to, the people are nervous about that. I've been kind of enjoying it, right? By warmer weather, I mean mid 20s to low 30s. That's actually pretty unusual for Idaho Falls at this time. But don't worry. The cold is coming. Here it is. We're down to single digits in negative weather, which is fine. We just worry about our kids going out. They're bundled up. They have a lot of methods of bundling up, and I think they can stay pretty warm. But when it starts to get into that negative weather, it's hard to stay warm, even with bundling up. And so if it gets too low, we just don't have our kids go out and help. Our three oldest boys, they're really good at coming out and, one of them takes care of the chickens, one of them takes care of the goats, another one takes care of the cats and helps me with the cow. And they're so generous and they're very helpful. I appreciate their good attitude with going out. They even go out on holidays, right? Christmas, Thanksgiving, you can't skip animal chores. So they're really good sports about it. I think they're actually kind of bummed when it gets too cold for them to go out because particularly my third son, he loves animals. He loves being around us. He likes to maximize his time with me because obviously I have to go to work. Let me rephrase that. I get to go to work to provide for the family. No qualms, no negative views of that. It's just, it's part of life. I'm gone a lot. Gone is a little bit of a misnomer. I'm down in my office. I work from home, but still, it's one of those things where he just wants to spend time with me. And so doing animal chores is a way that he does that. And he just, follows me around. He's like my little shadow. It's adorable. And he'll just talk to me, chat with me, and It's fine. I don't mind it. I like being around him. So I think he's a little bit bummed that it's too cold for them to go out. So hopefully that turns around quickly. The animals are wearing it very well. We anticipate milk production to drop. Generally, when the weather's cold, their bodies put more energy into keeping them warm, which is completely natural. So her milk production should drop at least a little bit. Whether or not it comes back up, it's hard to say. You don't always know. As in terms of updates for the mastitis, as I talked about in the last episode, she seems to be doing better. We've been trying herbal remedies, and it is improving significantly. So that's good. She's eating a lot of garlic, and at least she was. We're taking a break from it right now. We'll see how things improve over the next few days. And if she doesn't get better, then we'll either do the antibiotics or continue with the herbs. The herbs have been working though. We've seen a huge improvement. But the funny thing is, when you use things like garlic, onion, those types of things, it does come through in the milk. It's just part of life. It is a little bit funny to drink slightly garlicky milk. You can imagine what that's like. It's not bad. It just is strange, right? It's just two flavors that you don't think mixing. She also gave curry, I think. I'm trying to recall if it was curry or something else. And that also kind of yellowed the milk a little bit. So it's not bad, but obviously as her body's processing these things, what they eat is how their milk is produced. So we're looking forward to fresh grass milk. It tends to be creamier and taste better, but obviously that won't happen until the grass starts growing. So we're looking at 4 months from now. But we're still looking forward to it regardless. So let's see. Other than that, chicken production has gone down as well. Honestly, we haven't bought eggs in so long that I did not realize kind of how bad the situation is with eggs. We were watching the news the other day. We subscribe to a news channel particularly for homeschool families. It's pretty cool. And they were talking about how bird flu eliminated a lot of chickens, and that's very unfortunate. But they were saying price of eggs is upwards of $4 or $5, sometimes $8, $9 in California. And we're like, oh, wow, it's one of those things we just don't think about because we just have plenty of eggs for the most part. And we've saved some for a rainy day by making them shelf stable. So hopefully we don't have to buy eggs very soon. Although, like I said, with the colder weather, the chicken production has gone down. It's gonna sound funny, but we only got 7 eggs yesterday. That's not as many. We were getting 17, 15, 17 a day about 3 weeks ago. So hopefully we can weather that and not have to buy eggs, but you do what you gotta do, people got to eat. Let's see. Other than that, nothing on the homestead front. From an author perspective, it's mainly just continuing with the fourth novel of the Hidden Heritage series. My wife is nearly done with the post line edit version of the second book, which is called Demon Blooded. After that, I'll go through and review what she highlighted. There's not a lot, but there's some things that were missed and kind of kludgy sentences that need to be reworked. My son even found something and he's very proud of it. It was just a small typo that they happen. And then, yeah, I'll read through it again, kind of edit. There's a couple things I need to cut out, some kind of long scenes that people have indicated might need to be trimmed. I'm fine doing that. After that, I'll be sending that to the copy editor with the intent to send that to ARC readers by the end of February. So that's where we are with editing of that. And then as far as the writing goes for the fourth book, slow and steady. I'm at about 70,000 words. That gives me roughly 30,000 words if I'm looking for 100,000. I don't usually write with targets in mind. That's just kind of when they tend to finish. The first 3 books of this 6-book series all ended about 106 to 110,000 words. So I anticipate that's where this one will land. But who knows? Could be shorter, could be longer. Hopefully not longer. But as a discovery writer, I have no idea. That's kind of the beauty of discovery writing. But of course, I can always cut things out. So yeah, other than that, there's really not a lot going on author-wise. Just keeping on. But that being said, I think we can go ahead and shift over to the interview portion with H. How are you doing today, H?
I'm great. How are you today, Dan?
Doing very, very well. I'm thrilled to learn more about you and the story of your book. Before we get into all that fun stuff, how long have you been writing and publishing?
I have, thanks for having me first.
Of course.
I have been writing my story, my series for 25 years.
Wow.
Long time, long time. And I just started publishing my books in 2023. So at age 53, I put out my first book.
Right in time, right?
Yeah,
Just right on
absolutely.
time to get that out there. 25 years, that's really amazing. So I have to know, in terms of writing a story for that long period of time, Did you struggle to feel like it had reached a point for publication, or did you know when it was ready?
I think I have submitted it, to agents and queried it for probably, off and on for the last 16 years and, got rejections or, even worse when they just pretend you didn't send them
Mm.
anything.
Yeah.
The ghosting, so fun. So, and I would get feedback that I had an interesting idea, but, it wasn't quite right. And I actually think at this age, and I needed to live as long as I have in order for this book to make sense and for it to work out. And I needed to learn some more lessons on like how to do stuff. It just the timing is perfect. And it makes total sense now because if I would have written my story and published it within 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, the ending would have been completely different and not as empowering as I think it will be.
That's very interesting. So the ending of the whole series or just the ending of the first book?
The ending of the series, I think, yeah,
Very cool.
it would have been way different. I had a different viewpoint.
Not to mention that 20 years ago, publishing looked quite a bit different. For better or for worse, it just looked a lot different than it does now, right? There's so
Mhm.
many different methods of publication. So, did you decide to self-publish this series? Is that what you ultimately ended up doing, or?
I did. Let's see. So, in 2020, I was working my job as an interior designer for a builder. And with the pandemic, I actually lost my job.
Mhm.
And I thought, if not now, when, so I picked up my books again and really started going with them. And I, I got some help. I hired a consultant who actually helped me figure out that I needed to splice this book into five
Oh,
rather
okay.
than because originally I was writing it all on top of each other and it was like a brain blender for me. Like couldn't imagine what it would have been for a reader. So yeah, what was the question?
You answered the question already, which is great.
Oh,
But
oh good.
I think it's great though. The journey of this book, 25 years is, when you consider the fact that it's ended up being five stories, it's like, oh, okay, right? An average of 5 years per book. I mean, it's still some time, but how did you how did you not get bored or overwhelmed with the story working on it for such a long period of time? I know myself, I struggle to write something for more than a year. I'm ready to move on. But maybe
Yeah,
that's not you.
this story has had a hold of me. It's always been just kind of waiting in the background, like for me to do all my other stuff or whatever I was going through. It was still just back there like, hello,
Hmm.
you're gonna have to write me now, or hey, you should add this. And, kind of luckily for me, I've been journaler forever. So, I mean, I have massive amounts of notes and, diaries of big feelings and, stuff for me to put in these books. So, and I've kept it. I'm a paper person. I
Mm,
have gobs and gobs of notes. So, I mean, even with me coming out with my third book pretty soon, my fourth book and my fifth book are also almost done because I've been writing all five kind of these books for that long. So,
right.
it's going to feel like it came out like really quickly, but it's actually been a long process. But yeah, I have other ideas in my head that I'd love to get to, and I kind of venture over, and then I'm like, no, I have to get this done.
Mm.
It won't leave me alone.
That's honestly a good thing, right? It's better than struggling with it, right? Feeling not having the motivation, or I think it's great though because it's given you this passion for this story, which I believe has some aspects of memoir included. It's maybe not a full memoir, but maybe there's elements of you in the story. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's about half attributes
Wow.
of my life and half fiction.
Cool.
And I think that's one of the reasons I had such a hard time getting somebody to take a chance on my story.
Mm,
It's like, well, where's it going to sit in the bookstore and who we going to market to and how's that going to work? And, I would joke, well, you could put it in the front window of the bookstore.
That's a great place for it,
I
right at the
mean,
front.
it's different. Or you can put it in memoir. That's why I put fiction-ish is because there are definite attributes and moments and even people that I don't mention by name, but they are a part of my life. And so it's kind of 50-50.
That's so cool. It's fiction memoir. I don't think know if that's a real thing, but it actually sounds absolutely fascinating.
I think people call it autofiction.
Oh, that's right. I have heard of that.
Yeah, the autofiction, but like there are certain parts that are absolutely fiction.
Hmm.
So it's an autofiction fiction, maybe.
Fascinating. I love
Yeah.
it. The blended genre thing though is so cool, and I want to double tap on that a little bit because the fact that indie authors we have the creative liberty to say to just do whatever we'd like, right? We can publish and write whatever we'd like. That can be for better or for worse, right?
Hmm.
Depending on the person. But personally, I didn't query any agents because I knew that one, I wouldn't be able to handle the rejections. That's my own problem. Two, I decided that I would rather write books than write query letters. I was like, if I'm going to be spending my time writing, I'd rather write stories than query
Yeah.
letters and get them out there. So it sounds like you ultimately came to that conclusion. But how empowering has it been for you knowing that you can publish in your own timeline, whatever you'd like? How has that been for you?
I'm really grateful that it shook out this way. I mean, I think I used to kind of fantasize about having the big publishing contract and having a team and doing all that. But when you start to understand that, you're not going to be able to pick the title of your book, you're not going to be able to pick the cover of your book, they're going to want to make all the changes, you're going to lose your rights to do whatever. You have to weigh that.
Hmm.
And I think it wasn't going to happen for me, at least with these books. It didn't make sense. It's not something that somebody could point to, a comparable title and say, well, it worked this way for this author, so it'll be fine. And the comparable titles, I mean, when I was querying, and I did try, I have probably 100 rejections. It was there aren't any.
Hmm.
I'm making stuff up to have it be similar to this thing that I'm pointing at. And I heard this one thing that was fascinating about writing to market and, having these comparable titles that you want to have three comparable titles and they need to be published within the last 5 years.
Hmm.
And so somebody said, well, that's meaning that you have to actually be a mind reader to know what's going to want to be published in 5 years and
Right.
start it start it enough that you would have it done in that time period. It was like, well, that's practically impossible.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm thrilled with the way this has gone. And I mean the community and people that I've met along the way, we learn together and we support each other. It's been amazing.
I love that. And I totally agree with you on that. The writing to market thing is it's really tricky. Some people find a lot of joy in doing that. I would feel kind of tied up, kind of restricted by something like that. So I haven't really done specific market writing. But the community aspect, I want to talk a little bit about that because as an author, whether new or older, or I don't mean age, I mean in terms of experience, you know, experienced versus inexperienced author, that community aspect is one very important piece of it that a lot of authors maybe don't think about or maybe they don't make time for it. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that. How did you find the community that you're currently part of or communities, and how has that been beneficial for your writing
I remember my first writers group back when, I was like 23 years old,
a couple of years
baby.
ago?
I was just, oh, whew, God. Anyway, yeah, and I went and it was in the back of this old frame shop and it was run by this older lady and she was just kind of gruff and like rules and, we all had to bring our pages. So we'd bring like 10 pages and hand them out around the table, and people would read along and make their notes. And then they'd hand them back to you after you read aloud. And, I crave a group like that, but I
Hmm.
haven't been able to find it since. The community that I'm mostly a part of is a nice group on TikTok, is where I connect with a lot of other indie authors as well as traditionally published authors and narrators,
Hmm.
and authors to be writers. So that's I've been lucky to find at just the right moment the right person to help guide me through whatever it was. Like years ago, it was for my 40th birthday, right around my 40th birthday, I was asked to tell a story in front of an audience
Mm.
in our town. And then I'd never done anything like that before. And I was like, well, what the heck? I'll do it. And I told about the worst date I had ever been on, from that time prior. And, people laughed and it was kind of energizing and fun. But at that night, there was another woman who was telling a story, and she has come to be a really great cozy mystery author, very successful,
Hmm.
Ellie Alexander. And she writes these fabulous cozy mysteries, and she puts recipes in there, so like you can
Oh,
make the
fun.
cookies that they have, or the cakes or whatever. But she was the one that actually convinced me that I needed to turn my book series into 5 books to follow the 5 traveling books, so it would make sense. A lot of people just, or not just, but they'll often do a trio. It made more sense for me to do 5 because I didn't want to cut. I would have had to cut a lot in order to turn it into 3. So I
Right.
just I just did 5, and five's my number, I guess.
Just that's a accomplishment. Absolutely an accomplishment. And a lot of people won't even publish the first book that they say they're going to write. And here you are finishing up the fourth and the fifth one. Just for the sake of the listeners, we talked a little briefly about this before, but yeah, so I love the idea about your books, about these 5 traveling books. I just want to learn a little bit more about the plot of your stories. If you could share that.
Sure. So my series is about a woman who decides to live an extraordinary life, and she starts making choices and deciding that she wanted to live an extraordinary life within the confines of an ordinary one. And she was a stay-at-home mom and a wife, and couldn't make a lot of big changes. It wasn't like she was going to pack her bags and move to Greece or anything. She just wanted to make her life bigger from where she was. And she started doing some fun things and getting in with some other people and expanding. But then she has this idea that she'll write up some of her memories of people that she's known in her life, and she publishes them into little handmade books with a note. Oh, yeah, about the people that she's known in her life. And using the person's initials at the top of each entry. And then she includes a note asking that any recipient, please read the book and write your name in the back and location and date, and then pass it along so that the books can eventually find their way back to someone she wrote about, and that person would bring the book back to her. So it's like this big circle completion. And so we have that traveling book story going on, and then we also have the kind of watching the author grow and change and go through the different experiences through time as she waits for one of the books to come back to her. She doesn't really tell anybody about the books. She kind of keeps it as a secret, hidden mystery about, for herself. And yeah, so we there's 3 parts. I've put a cheat code in the beginning of the book so people can read it more easily because it's been a brain blender. But when I think back to the way it was when I originally started writing it, I was writing the three braids. So the author's journal entries, the memories, and then the travels, all 3 of those. But I was writing all 5 books at the same time.
Hmm.
So you would bounce from, book 3 and the characters that are traveling and, and getting a book in book 3 to 5 to 1. And it was like, people are going to hate me. I'm going to need to give them a physical map to understand. So breaking it into the 5 made much more sense. And people are liking it. People are liking it. So I'm thrilled.
I mean, I think it's such a great idea, and it sounds really fun. And it's one of those almost like it could be reality, right? Anybody if this could have happened in real life, right? I know it's fiction-ish, but just also the elements of yourself help bring a certain level of personality that I think might be missing in some authors, right? Because it's very personal to you, for better or for worse, right? And so I'm sure that definitely comes through in your writing. But I'm curious to know, with the complexity of the story, with the travels of the books and the memories and the almost journal entries of the author herself, how did you keep it all organized? Do you have any recommendations or?
Yeah, I have spreadsheets. Now I
Oh,
understand
spreadsheets. Okay.
you're a pantser, correct?
I am, yes.
So my spreadsheets are very basic. It's like, okay, this character lives here, and then they're going to give the book to this person, and
Hmm.
they're going to give the book to this person, and then I write like very little about the, maybe appearance or where they are in their life or whatever, and I just have these teeny little nuggets, and then I pants my way through all of it. So I needed to have a framework, I'll
Hmm.
say, but I'm 100% a pantser, although I love research. Like,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, so what I've been lucky enough to do with these different characters, because I'm picking them from different times. So in my second book, I actually have the book get stuck in an assisted living home for a while. And
Mm,
it's allowed me to pick up on these characters, that were alive during World War II. And I get to go
interesting.
like full on into, different aspects of the life and times of that area and what they experienced, and I geek out on that. Like, I love it, and I can't believe my luck. Like, I'll sit there and I'll be like, okay, I want to have a girl, and I want her to be in Georgia, and I want her to grow up in a resort town at this time. And then sure enough, in pops a city. It's perfect. It has the history. And I'm just like plugging it in. And it's like, I don't know if you get this way, and I would love to know, but do you just feel like you're downloading stuff and having it shoot out your fingers and it's like
Yes.
not even you?
100%. Yes, that's a very good description of it.
It's
Very
not
good
even
description.
me. It's not. It's someone else is running the keys. And
Yep.
I love it. It's cool. But then you go back and read it and you're like, did I write that?
Oh, every single time. Yeah, absolutely. First off, on the research bit of it, I can totally understand. The more I think about the research bit, there's something exciting about the research. I think for me, the scariest part is using that research because I don't want to
Mm,
do it wrong. Just like,
mm,
oh, like this is reality, or these are real events, or these are things that I don't want to get wrong in the writing. But I don't worry too much about it in the actual writing process because, like you said, it's just this weird, like, I don't know how to describe it, presence or peace of mind comes over your brain, and I just stop thinking, and I tell the best way I describe it to people is when I'm writing my books, it's like I'm reading it for the first time as a reader. I'm not
mm,
actually writing it. It's just like I'm just reading it as it's coming out of me. And so I
mm.
don't really think too far ahead. It just kind of comes out, which is a very strange experience. But then yeah, it does, you go back and you think, I didn't even know that I could write those words. I didn't even know I knew what some of these words meant. And here
Yes,
they are coming out on the page.
totally. Never
So
said that word in my life, and here it
nope.
comes.
Yep, absolutely. But I think a
Yeah.
lot of that does come from the research, right? From the filling that creative well. I like reading. I like stories in general. Like you love art, you love kind of finding peace of mind in this creative space. And as long as you have that well filled, then the writing piece of it can just kind of come out. But yeah, by the way, your spreadsheets do sound very similar to what mine are as well. Like
Oh, cool.
one-liners. I do have
Hmm.
that amount of organization, except it's pretty much just one sheet with a spatter of just like locations,
Hmm.
people, creatures, things that just
Yeah.
like I probably should remember this. I'll just like toss it down like one line about it, and that's all it gets.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. And you're doing world building with your stuff, right?
yeah, it's less so for the books I'm currently working on. They're more young adult, so there's some world building, but not as robust as my epic fantasy, which was, 190,000 words of each book. It just world
Wow.
building and different characters. So that was pretty intense, but just kind
Well,
of
it was
depended on the
fun
mood.
to make stuff up and make worlds. I think that's so cool.
It is
So
very,
cool.
very cool. I think there's just a delicacy with each of them, right? Writing in reality versus writing out of reality. There's definitely, you need skills in both, but I think there's also some finesse that's required to write in reality, like what you've done, right? Both in like historical reality as well as just like the real world. So, did you find yourself struggling at all with any aspects of that, or did it just come pretty easily?
I want to say that I decided a while ago that I really wanted to make it as authentic
Hmm.
as I could for like different parts of it. So I do have some Native American characters in my books, and I reached out to the tribe, that I was focusing on because I wanted to, honor them. I
Hmm.
wanted it to make sense and be as if, because I am
Yeah.
not, and I have just respect for that. So I've managed to partner with some really amazing people that have helped teach me and make it more appropriate, and also to highlight whatever histories that I might mention, but to share what resources they prefer people to read, And so in the back of my books, I have all of my resources for anything that I
Good.
touch on, whether it's a medical condition or it's tribal history or, US history. I put the resource in there because I really want my books to inspire people to learn more.
Hmm.
I don't know how your education went, but I don't feel like I learned very much in school. And that might have been some that I was just this little kid who was quiet and didn't ever talk. And I didn't do great in school. I wasn't there. I was off thinking about stuff. So, or
Yeah.
telling stories in my head. And so I'm trying to inspire people to learn more about ourselves. There's a theme of togetherness and connection and how much we can accomplish when we work together. It's this global social experiment to see just how small the world really is.
Hmm.
And yeah, so
the reason I was laughing at the school thing is because I was that same way. I did well in school though, but because I was really good at doing the work, not the
hmm,
testing pieces of it. But I would get it all done and then not pay attention, if that makes sense. So I was kind of like the opposite. I would just like finish it really quick and then and kind of not pay attention. I don't remember learning a lot in any school except for college. I did learn quite a bit in my college degree, but the difference there was I was pretty interested in the subject matter. I studied linguistics. I still love languages. It's a really big
hmm,
part of me. It's very creative. I love communication. So, but that's a part of the reason we're homeschooling, actually, because both my wife and I got to the end of our high school years and thought, what did I even learn? Like, I can't even think of the things that I learned in school. So we're trying to teach our children to have a love of learning from home. So, and it seems to be
yeah,
working
it's
so far.
awesome.
They're
I
enjoying
mean,
it.
in doing that, you can really hone in on the interests of
Hmm.
your individual children, and that's something that the education system doesn't have the ability or, the
Right, right.
resources to do. So I
Yep.
think that's great. Yeah. I know I started like preschool at a Montessori school, which is
Oh, cool.
very
Yeah.
active and learning by putting your hands on something and, sorting different things, and then you go into regular public school and they're teaching you by talking at you.
Right.
And, I don't know if it was just a disconnect there or the fact that, I did have ADHD and I wasn't interested in what they were talking about. That I think the level of interest, I mean, we can hyper focus and
Hmm.
just kill it on whatever we're interested in. But I mean, I have to take medication to do accounting, and that's the truth.
I don't
So,
do accounting like I should. We don't have to get into all those bad, but
yeah.
those are the challenges of ADHD, right? Yeah, I was a chronic procrastinator. I still have that
Mhm.
problem. I would literally wait until hours before something was due, and then I would just throw it all together and manage to scrape by with an A minus or a B. It was just like I did it, right? But I did it in about an hour before it was due. I don't recommend that. Don't live that
Mhm.
way. That's the
I
way
mean,
I
it's me too.
live.
I mean, I think it's the nature of the brain. And
Yep.
I'd love to have a side conversation with you about an anthology idea I have because I think it might be fun to work on it together.
That
Um,
would be pretty fun, actually. I would love to talk more about it.
yeah.
But so I want to know, this is so different for every author, right? You have 25 years experience of writing and publishing, which is, I think, amazing. Your insight is very different. What advice do you have for someone who might be at the beginning? Maybe they just started
Mm.
writing their first book in the last few months or the last year.
I do have some. I do. I would say I spent the majority of my life not believing I could do it because I
Mm,
listened to what other people said.
I'm the same way.
It,
Yeah.
it it's exactly it. And it may be that they were trying to protect us, or maybe it was something that they thought would be so hard that they wouldn't be able to do it, and they put that limiting belief on me. And it's please don't listen to people that say it can't be done
Mhm.
because they don't know. You don't know, there are no guarantees, there are no, absolutes in any of this, but you can try, especially if it's in your heart and you know that that's what you're supposed to be doing. I've known it forever that I would go back to it as many times as I would leave. I would go back to it. This is my thing. And yeah, be true to yourself. I also think, and this will be controversial, but I didn't do a ton of reading in my kind of middle years. I'm getting way more into it now, but I think my belief that I wasn't good at school kept me
Mm.
from doing these, what I thought were academic things like read a million books a year. I'm not making fun of anybody right there. Nobody reads a million, but there are people that read 100, and that's
Right.
like awesome. I think it might have helped me not to read in order to write this book because I'm going against a lot of the rules that they say are musts.
Mm.
And I guess that would be my second tip is to, maybe don't worry so much about following all the rules because I think there's room for new. I think we can absolutely cripple ourselves by trying to follow all the rules.
Mhm.
Show, don't tell. Don't start a book with a dream. There's all these things.
Okay.
And I have this great book. I should have put it out here, but it's called The Anti-Rule by Christian Francis.
No,
And I,
okay.
I found him on TikTok
I
and
know
he
him.
wrote
He's
this.
great.
Yeah, he's great. And I read that book and I'm like, hallelujah, we can have independent thoughts. Yay. Thank you for saying that we can have independent thoughts. I needed a book to tell me, but, that we could have no rules. But, and I've read some of the other craft books and there's good stuff in all of them. It's just you got to be true to yourself.
Yep, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. I haven't read the anti-rule book. I've seen it, heard things from Christian Francis, but I think I agree with you as well. To some degree on the craft books. Admittedly, I haven't read any craft books except for like Pantser related ones. There are actually some that are geared more towards discovery writers. There's very few, right?
Hmm.
I can name them on two hands, I think is all of the books about discovery writing. But those ones I have read. I tried reading things like Save the Cat or anything around plotting and structure. And I just don't make it past the first chapter because my brain just fights it. And I've
Yeah.
decided just I'm not going to fight it, right? I
Yeah.
know what works for me and I know how stories flow and I'm not going to worry too much about, the show don't tell those different structures for story because I think a lot of people, especially if they have a passion for it and or they have experience from reading or movies or any type of storytelling, you're just gonna know intrinsically what the structure needs to be.
Mhm.
And just trust that and just write it out. And you'd be surprised what can come out of you if you just write it. So I
I mean,
agree.
we talk, we're communicating, we
Right.
talk all day. Like, surely a message can come,
You think? I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Totally agree.
So, on that note, I definitely will hope people listening feel encouraged by this, right? Two people who felt for a lot of their lives that couldn't write or was not right for us, but eventually came to terms with, wait, what they were saying was not right. That doesn't work for me. If you're feeling that, ignore it and just get to writing, get it out, even if it
Mhm.
takes 25 years, right? Hopefully it doesn't, but if it does,
Yeah,
it does, right?
if it does, it does.
So once the fifth book comes out, how long until the fifth book comes out? Is it soon?
I'm hoping to get books 3 and 4 out this year, and then book 5, 2026 is my
Nice.
hope, you know? And then that series will be done because I have another couple like super complicated. Why? Like, hello, why? But okay, this is my thing. I guess I'm gonna write these complicated brain twister books that, a few people hopefully will understand. So yeah, I'm excited to get into something different, but I do enjoy writing the characters that I put in my books. And oh, I didn't tell you. So my traveling books, I actually have some limited edition trackable versions out in the
Cool.
world too. So there's 20 of each of the 5 in the series, so there'll be a total of 100. And right now, there's 40 out right now in, different parts of the United States. I've got one in Iceland, there's one in Ireland, there's one in
What?
England.
So cool.
Yeah, yeah. So in the front of the book, there's a sticker. I don't have one in here, but there's a sticker on the front of the book that has a QR code that people can, take the picture, do the thing, and then it goes to a form where they can put in their name and the location where they found it, if they want to join the newsletter, and then that will be on a map. And when we have more data, right now people are not moving it as much. So when we have more data, it'll become this interactive map on my website where people can look at the books, move back and forth. And it's on my Find My Books page if you're looking on there.
I'm looking right now. That's
So I
super
need to
cool.
update the map. But yeah, so they're kind of everywhere. So like if people see, I'll just show it in case this goes on YouTube. This is what they look like. If you see it in a tiny library, pick it up. It might be one of the trackable versions, and then you're going to be a big part of the story.
Look, there's one in Idaho. At least
There is one in Idaho.
there
Yes.
you go.
Yeah.
Somewhere around. But I think that's so cool. What an innovative idea and also just fun. But how related to the story. It matches the story perfectly and it just provides a fun element. I'm sure your audience loves it, the idea of it. Hopefully they do. I know I would enjoy that. But yeah, any other pieces of grains of advice that you can think of? No
Gosh.
pressure. There's a lot.
I think I was kind of interested in one of your other podcasts talking about a Kickstarter. Somebody had done a
Oh, yep.
Kickstarter, and I'm thinking of doing a Kickstarter for my books for an audio version that is multicast
Oh,
because
cool. Yeah.
I have so many characters, throughout the books that I'd like them to have different voices. I also imagine that my books would be ripe for fan fiction if
Hmm.
because I have this character, but then they give the book to somebody else and then they're just hung out to dry. And like some people get a little irritated with me on that. Well, what happened to Sarah? Well, I
The
mean,
book's not with
I know
Sarah
what
anymore.
happened to Sarah. And so I've written some like before and after stories for
Cool.
some different characters just to not leave everybody hanging because I like a good, wrap up myself. I don't know if you do.
I
So
do. Yes. And
yeah.
that just opened up like endless opportunities for you to write.
Yeah.
Backstory, short stories, connected stories, which is so fun.
Yeah.
That's
It's
awesome.
it's been a blast. It's been a blast, but like this part has been really amazing. And once you have a book out, then you suddenly have this, well, I already did it. You
Hmm.
know, I can do it again, and I can do it again, and I can do it again.
Hmm.
So it feels like this big mountain that you're climbing in order to publish a book, but once you've done it, you can do it again.
Yeah. You just kind of, even though it feels heavy each time, which is ironic, right? It's just like I have to remind myself, I have done this before, right? I've done this a few
Yeah.
times at this point, but there's
There's
just so much.
There's not a lot of people that I've heard say it, but I think when after you publish a book, I got kind of down, like
Yeah,
depressed. There's this low energy, and
that's true.
I think it's this astronaut syndrome. We're working, going into space with this book, and then the mission is over, and we're just back on
You're kind of like,
Earth.
now what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
happens.
But just
Definitely does.
understanding that that's part of it kind of help.
It does.
Yeah.
Just makes you aware of it so that you're prepared for that. But well, we honestly we could have so many more conversations about ADHD and learning and the way we write. Honestly, we could go forever.
Anytime.
but we are
Yeah.
running short on time. So before we end here, where can people find more information about you and your books if they want to look them up?
My website is hhrune, rune.com. My books are on Amazon currently. I can do signed copies out of my website. They're available through Barnes and Noble. They're available if you luck into a little library somewhere. Yeah,
Hopefully you find one of those special copies. And if you
yeah.
do, scan the QR code.
Scan the QR code,
Put
and
your
if you're
location
if
in.
you're anywhere around me, bring it in. That would be a blast.
That would be very, very cool. I don't find myself up in Washington very frequently, but if I ever did and I had one of your books,
Yeah.
then
We'll
it would be
we'll
great.
talk. I think we'll stay in contact, Dan. I've really
Yeah,
enjoyed talking with you today.
I enjoyed it as well, and I appreciate your all your insights. It's been very great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure.
I found that helpful. Talking with H was just very encouraging and heartening. You know, I don't ever regret going the indie route. I don't think I've regretted it at all. Maybe I'll hit that day at some point, but I'm pretty happy with the creative liberties and freedom I have with my publishing. And it seems like she has found that same satisfaction and joy. Obviously, the business aspects of it is just it's a huge beast, and eventually someday I'll be able to tackle that a little more. And I think she's in the same boat. But yeah, I really hope you would learn something from that conversation. Next week, we'll be talking to Dana K. White about authenticity as a way to success. We talk about how to be authentic online, how to build a business with authentic reasoning and with your authentic self, and how that can definitely lend to more success. She's a kind of an expert, or I would say she's an anecdotal expert on decluttering. So we talk a little bit about that. And yeah, it's just a really positive conversation. So hopefully you are able to join me for that next week. Thanks for listening. Of course, share with your friends and let me know if you or you'd like someone else to join me on the podcast, thecasualauthor.com. You should be able to subscribe there now and definitely fill out the pitch form if you'd like to join me. Thanks again for listening, and I look forward to talking to you next week.